LaLinea by Anne Jaramillo, Chapter 2. I picked up my soccer ball and twirled it on my index finger. It was scuffed and stained, and the plastic insides bulged out in two places. Soccer was just a memory now. I hadn't made the cut for the best team, the one I had to get on if I wanted a chance to turn pro. I remembered el sueño, the dream, that I just had before waking. I knew the dream by heart. It was the same one I'd had 1,000 times. In my dream, when my turn came, I didn't go north to California. Instead, I played soccer for Cruz Azul or Chivas, America or Naxacasa. I was famous. I was very rich. I returned to Jacinto in my shiny new black SUV, riding up high around and around La Plaza, looking down on all the people. They looked up at me, but they had no eyes, no nose, no mouths. I didn't know who anyone was. I brought Mama and Papa and the twins back home. I built us a mansion, the biggest one in the whole state, 10 times the size of Don Clemente's. I always wake up in a cold sweat, just as I put the key in the door. I shook my head hard. Soccer was just a dream now, and a dead one. Just stop. Forget it. I heard Abuelita, Grandma, shuffling around in our kitchen. She'd been up before 5 o'clock and had already started the fire for breakfast. She talked quietly to herself as she moved around. Ahora, now, tortillas. How many will Miguel want? Abuelita mumbled. The masa slapped slightly in her hands. And Elena, who knows, sabrá Dios. I looked over at my sister. She slept, curled up in a little ball, exhausted. Every night that she couldn't sleep, like last night, like most nights, Elena pulled out Mother's letters that are in a little woven bag she kept under her bed. She read them over and over, one by one, in chronological order. In almost 7 years, we'd seen Mama just once, a little over 3 years ago, for 3 days. She slipped home for her sister's funeral, Tía Consuelo, using up all the saved money to pay the coyote to get her back across LaLinea. Elena had to grow up without a mother, so she hoarded what she could of Mama, her letters. The words were like little drops of water to a person dying of thirst. Enough to give hope, not enough to make a difference. I threw on my pants and shirt, tucked Papa's note in my pocket, and I stepped quietly out of our room. Abuelita stood at the stove, spooning my birthday pozole into a bowl. I kissed her on top of her head. She touched my cheek and made the sign of the cross on my forehead. Abuelita set the bowl on the table. Eat, Miguel, eat. I took a handful of oregano out of a bowl, rubbed it in my palms, and watched it land on top of the steaming soup. Abuelita gave me 2 of her handmade tortillas. I tore one and dipped it into the pozole. The pungent maize mingled with the smell of roasting chilies and the beginnings of sopa, soup. One of our chickens had already been killed for dinner. Abuelita plucked the feathers from its lifeless body. She turned back to me. Don Clemente has gone to La Capital, she said quietly. He won't be back until Sunday. I'll tell Elena the news if you want, Abuelita continued, but it's better coming from you. She deserves to hear it from you. Sí, Abuelita, I said it respectfully. I sounded obedient. I didn't want to be the one to tell Elena. She'd have one of her famous temper tantrums. She'd cry for hours. Nothing I could say would stop it, except to say I'd take her with me. And that was not going to happen. 10 minutes later, Elena dragged herself out of bed and into the kitchen. She rubbed her eyes and yawned. She looked like she was 3 years old instead of 13. I couldn't tell her. The words I needed to say felt like mud in my mouth. Abuelita let out a deep sigh, turned her back to me, and stirred the beans, frijoles, bubbling in the pot on the stove. I walked out barefoot, and I stood on the edge of our ranchito. I dug my toes into the soft, dusty dirt and stared out at the cornfield. The stalks were dry, the cobs stunted and diseased. Every year the drought got worse. We tried diverting the spring water. We'd carried water by hand. Nothing worked. Even if our corn didn't die because of the drought, even if the corn grew tall and green with silky golden tassels, we couldn't sell it for more than a few pesos. Mexico was flooded with cheap foreign corn. Our market had dried up along with el maíz, the corn. If Papa and Mama didn't send a little money every month, we would starve. Even if I wanted to, I couldn't help here anymore. Please listen to this recording one more time and then answer the questions on the Google form in Google Classroom.